Yeah.
So shall we start maybe?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So hello, everyone. I'm Anqi. I'm the Curator of Education and Public Programs at Parasite. And today I want to welcome you all to our student visit with Shawn Tang. And today I also want to introduce our special co-moderator of today, Martha. Martha is currently an intern at Parasite, and she's also very interested in Shawn's work. So maybe Martha, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit first?
Okay, sure. Hi, I'm Martha. I'm currently a final year student at School of Creative Media and City University. Yeah, I'm very interested in Shawn's work, and I hope you all would join me in questioning Shawn about his work. Yes.
Yes. And Shawn, would you like to introduce yourself and also share with us where you are at right now?
Yeah, hi, I'm Shawn Tang, and then I just finished my BA degree at visual arts in AVA, and I usually work with installations and video, sound, sculpture, mostly like things with physical forms. And I am actually right now I'm at AVA, is where I currently working in. Because I work in the sculpture team, so I helping the sculpture professor to produce like 3D printings and laser cuttings, and also like much more like crafting works right now.
Will we see more works in 3D printing?
I mean, these machines are like, they can produce only like very tiny, like smaller than like 10 centimeters 3D printing. But I'm trying to manipulate more on this type of technology too.
So we will be seeing more 3D printing from you. Well, have you used 3D printing in your previous works before?
No, but I try to like when I have ideas on like a certain sculptures, and I pictured it in imagination, I would like to see it in real life. Then that where I can like start using SketchUps and softwares like to building up like small structure, and then 3D print it out, and try to base on that and enlarge it into like a bigger scale. And that helped me to develop my work.
So for you, it's more like sketching, like how to sort of see, maybe because, well, at least so far we see a lot of your works, they are quite installation-ish. Would you say like 3D printing is perhaps not really, I mean, I'm not limiting it, but like perhaps right now not your art form of choice, but rather a form of sketching, but like physical sketching for you?
I mean, this type of 3D printers, they can produce like a very like a small sculpture. I mean, I'm trying to looking at how like probably somehow maybe later on I will look into how to develop like a modular system to develop more works or sculpture with a modular systems of printed objects. That could have potential, I don't know.
Yeah, because I remember when I went to see AVA's graduation show, like all the artworks are really spread out on the campus, like even in some of the studio spaces, right? And well, this is also how I found Shawn's work and want to, share with everybody is, yeah, Shawn has a really beautiful installation in AVA graduation show. And today we'll talk about this work and also many of Shawn's previous works and even upcoming projects. So in the first 40 minutes or so into this online program, Shawn's gonna share a slides presentation with us, and Martha and I will ask some questions and also to know Shawn, your background, your practice more. And in the maybe last 10-15 minutes, we will open questions to our audience here. So if you have any questions, any comments, feel free to leave in the chat box. You can also just unmute yourself and talk to Shawn and us directly at the end. So that's the plan for today. And maybe shall we start?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So So before I talk about I would like to start by my graduation work, and before I try to explain more into look into the details that I was thinking, then I wanted to share with you how this installation looks. It's actually now it's like a video documentary. Let me share screen now. So it's 8 minutes, around 8 minutes video. Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's take a look at the video first.
Yeah, it's a video with no sound. So try to settle into the darkness.
Shawn, do you mind if I talk while we're still watching the video?
No.
Okay. So because I saw this installation in person, but I imagine not everybody has like seen this. Would you like to share with us like what's the actual installation looked like?
So the work itself, it's two bodies of work, and it's actually consists of two light boxes, and each of the light boxes were installed on the walls, and they are facing opposite to each other. So you are looking at light from one side of the wall, projected by a light box, and then it's kind of like it has like a very slowly grows, and then at certain times it kind of slowly fades away. And by during the time when one side of the light box is like glowing, and you can see the reflections on the other side. And then it takes turns, like when one light box is finished, and then the other light box will start to glow, and you can see the reflection from the other side. That's how the mechanic works. So it takes around 8 minutes and 31 seconds. So in the installation room, it's very different from what we are looking now. It's a total dark environment. So it's I can call it as an immersive experience installation.
Shall we watch the whole video first, or shall we like hear about the story?
Yeah, we can. So is what I said. So this is around 6 minutes, and then it will slowly fade it out, and that's a loop. And then the other one will glow again. That's the loop. So I think like when people getting into the installation, like they are looking at two light boxes, they were probably thinking and maybe meditating. I think some of my works, they are producing like quite a meditating environment. So let me talk about something more about this work.
Yeah, because when I first saw the work, I feel there's it's very minimalistic. But on the other side, because like being minimalistic, sometimes you feel it's really cold. But in your work, there is this warmth. So yeah, please share with us.
Yes, let me change screen to, okay. Is it working now?
Yeah, we're looking at the PDF.
Okay. So this work is called Two Suns. A second. So this is the appearance of the light box. So actually, like, I turned on the lights and then I took a picture, because in the totally dark environment, it's very hard to take picture of the light box. So the whole work begins with a narrative. It's about two relationships, and one relationship between me and my grandfather, and the other relationship kind of like unveiled itself when I had more conversation with my grandfather. So my grandfather, he just turned 29 years old, actually last year, and then he had to move to
92.
And yeah, 90. He was 92 last year. He is now 93, and he moved to an elderly home, like at that period of time. And then like the home, because my grandfather was probably like a figure in our family, and he kind of like always show himself in the environments of domestic environments, like at home. He was always at home. And then when he left, when he moved to the elderly homes, I feel the absence of his. And because like we were like, is it normal or not normal? Because I seldom talk to him, and I have like a kind of like a gap between him and I. And then we seldom talk. And then when he moved to elderly homes, I started to paying visits to him a lot. And then like he is getting closer to me, and we had more conversations on more like private story, personal story. He would share some very funny stories in the past. And at one time, at one point, he came to me, and then he was asking for a photo of a woman. And then he told me about a story about when he first moved to Hong Kong in the 60s, and could be 50s, because it's 92. He was 92, and then during that time, like many migrate to Hong Kong, and then he was one of them. And he was already married in the mainland China, but he came the long way alone to Hong Kong, and then he tried to settle into the environment and work in Hong Kong for afterwards. And then he kind of met a woman doing work, and then this woman was very strange to me because I have never heard of her story. And then when he told me about this story, like this lady, she also turned 92 last year, and then like, and I think there are some ambiguous relationship between them, and they went for cinema, they went for dating, but he won't call that dating because I think because he's a married man, and he seldom talk about this. But he came to me instead of my mother and my father, and told him stories in like quite several times, and then but eventually this woman kind of like moved to Hawaii during the time after a while. And then I just feel that this story could give me like such like a very ambiguous feelings, and then I can feel the romantic sense that my grandfather is trying to show me. I don't know. And but then they will then separate during the 60s, 70s, and so now they are like living in two distinct locations, one in Hong Kong, one in Hawaii. And I was intrigued by this locational difference and the time difference between two places. So I had the idea of about how we like when they left, this is kind of awkward. It's also like parallel to the feelings when my grandfather left me, like left home to move to an elderly home. And then when I saw the locational differences, the time differences, I realized that like Hawaii is actually 18 hours time difference apart from Hong Kong. And then which means when it's sunset or sunrise in the other end of the world, Hawaii, you won't see sunset and sunrise. And I realized that differences. So I put my studies into, I think this kind of natural phenomenon is kind of like parallel to relationship. And so so I try to employ these ideas and developed it into like a very minimalistic bodies of work. And like each side of the light boxes can symbolize or as a metaphor to the relationship. And also because like the story is like complex with its complexities, like I am also I'm witnessing this types of relationships, and I am in that relationships too. So I try to produce an environment that's and also like bring out like a fictional narrative about two suns, because when you see one side of the light boxes is glowing, and then you can only see its reflections. It's like from the reflection, it's like projecting like a totally fictional world, and that's where the ideas came from. And this is the appearance of these two light boxes. Yeah, that's any questions about this work, because it's quite complex.
Yeah. I actually want to ask Martha, because when you first saw the work online, how did you feel about it? What were you thinking?
I think because I didn't see it on site, right? So when I at least the way you documented it, you sort of, I guess you wanted us to see that it was opposite of each other. So the way it was put, perhaps I cheated. I sort of read a bit before watching the video. I kind of know the story a bit, and I don't know why, like, despite this two being in rectangular boxes, when I see it, my mind has turned it into a sphere. Perhaps because I know it's related to, geographical location. Somehow, to me, it also, aside from a sun, it sort of seemed like a radar tower transmitting the connection between two locations. So that's sort of what I felt. And yeah, I think it's very warm, very, like, as Anqi mentioned, like, it's very simple, but really warm.
I agree. Yeah, and also when I remember when I was standing in the dark room, like you said, Shawn, previously, like, this is not only about the relationship between your grandfather and this lady, but also there's this tension connection between you and these two people as well, because you're the other person standing in the room and watching the sunrise and the sunset. So that's a very interesting position I think you kind of provided or ask your like audience to take to participate. Yeah.
And I heard Martha mention about like these rectangular shapes, and it did came out with a certain visual aesthetics I observe, and I'm trying to employ, because when I visit the elderly home, it was like a tiny box, and during this pandemic time, like my grandfather, he was almost like shut in. He couldn't get out, and the only way he reaches out was through the window. And I try to abstract the body of the window, the shape of it, to like minimize the effects of how audience like feel this is like a whole important thing, like, because like when you see window, it will lead you to think of more things important to window instead of the light installations. I try to abstract that, but yeah, the rectangular shape, they came up with like official aesthetics. And yeah, and then this work, when I developed it, I also tried to abstract how the sunrise and sunsets unveiling themselves, because like sunrise and sunset, they move in the directions. For example, sunrise move up, like the sun will move up, the image of the sun will kind of like slowly move up, and then it's rising. But these installations is just like light from slowly glowing, and then slowly fading out. I was trying to produce like a different idea of how we perceive sunsets and sunrise.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was thinking about, because obviously sun is the theme, I guess, of her work, but you usually don't associate sun with darkness. And this work is presented in, sun is like bright, this thing, but you present it rather in a very contrasty way, where something that's really bright is situated in a rather dark room, and perhaps that's where the minimalist or like the very peaceful sense, sunlight, it gives you like vibrancy, but this is so contrasting, it gives you peace. Yeah.
Maybe I'll add a comment is, Shawn, I think like in your work, I see there's a very interesting angle is you really care about, you seem to really care about like how people see your work. It's not really the it's not really like the perspectives, but really like the physical angle. That's what I feel like, the shapes of your work, and also where you kind of want like people to be at, to get immersed into this environment. So I know like you have more installation works. So do you want to share with us so we can talk more from there as well?
Yeah, and to respond to these questions, I think one of the ideas on the main idea of my practices is to keep the openness with audience, like keep the open dialogue to the audience. Okay, this work is called One Borrowed Summer. I did last year, and it's around September last year. And then it's also an site-specific installation, because like during the setup periods, I designed all how they positioned, how the objects and the things positioned on site. And this one is also quite open to, maybe I can show a 1 minute overview of this one. So is this sharing?
Yes, we're looking at the image now. Yeah.
Okay. This one. So let's take a look of the 1 minute overview. So I'm again employing the image of the sun.
Is there any sound in the documentation? No.
Yeah, the sound. It's not.
Maybe you can add on the volume.
Okay.
I think it's the sharing setting. When you set sharing, you have to like press like a button there that also shares the audio. But maybe you can just like describe to us what is, because it's quite simple, the soundscape. Maybe you can just tell us what it is.
Yeah, sure. So basically, the installation that came up with video installation, it's set like a small analog TV on one end, and then there's when there is like a white noise came in, fade ins, and then kind of like make this image of the sun kind of blurry. And the sound was like a wave of the sound of the waves and I recorded from a beach from Venice. Let me go back to the PDF. Okay, and so this is where I've been to in Venice, a very sunny and very vocational beach. And then I think something very more here.
It reminds me of, you know, the older version of television, like you have the snowflakes like screen. Sometimes there's a like a light dot on it.
Yeah, I trying to employ that, like the white noise, like it's like almost like a interference to the screen, and I try to keep things like much more simple to how to associate with the knowledge we already have, and so I record the sounds from the beach in Venice, and then I put them into the installations and create an environment as almost like a monotone beach. And then the installation itself, it kind of gives like very sorrows and not much feelings at all. It's very cold. It's very unlike, it creates a very big contrast with the environments in Venice.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead.
sorry. And then it's kind of like projects the internal feelings of mine, the personal feelings of mine during the times last year. I mean, it's last year was like a very we all had very vibrant year, and then like when I was away from Hong Kong, and this work is it's like a combination of two locations. It's also about distance between two locations, and I trying to enter and produce create a dialogue in between. And yes.
Question. So, because different from like your last work is, it sounds very cold, but it's very warm. But like this work is like when you're talking about the beach in Venice, it reminds me of, you know, those maybe happy summer days. But actually, like the sand here or like the whole environment makes me feel the coldness actually instead. So can you tell us more about the sand, the material?
The sand, they are ashes. They are basically ashes from I collected from the temple close to AVA, because there is a temple in a very close spot. And then I asked them if they can give me a few bags of ashes, and I filter the parts, the bigger parts out, and then left with like a very soft sandy texture there. And I think ashes at that time was, I mean, that could be like a seasonal product. You know, it's so it's like a taboo to say, because it was from Qingming Festival. I mean, like after Qingming Festival, like people produce a lot of ashes, and I collect them. And I mean, the materials itself, it kind of like goes along with the coldness and the beach that's happiness already stripped away. Yeah. And yeah, and then I for this installation, I also try to keep that openness with the audience to really immerse themselves into the environment, to listen to the wave, the sound of the wave, like fading in, fading out, the image fading in, fading out, and try to associate with their feelings too.
Yeah, I really like associate with your like this particular work as an audience. especially with your title, like stolen time, if I got a borrowed time. Like, yeah, I think I was also away. I was studying in Germany at that time, and it seeing this work, it really like touched me. Like, I really can associate with it. Me being in an environment where we are completely, you know, at a different location, completely a different life, and like seeing whatever is happening to your home, like even if you're not at that physical location, you just could not enjoy your time. You feel undeserving of this time, and you just felt like you're borrowing, really you felt like you're borrowing this, your happiness is all borrowed from someone else's struggles. Yes. So yeah. I think the material, I didn't know that it was actually like ashes, and I think just the the choice of material really speaks itself. The material, yeah.
And you know, in Cantonese, it's when you're expressing something, you're really like disappointed, or like with disappointment, you say "vui," you know, and I mean it's funny, but at the same time, it's not.
That's true.
I'm curious, Shawn. So, because those are incense ashes, right? So, like, did you ever get comments or questions from your like audience asking about them, or can you like describe the smell of it, like in the environment? Does it like make you feel you're in a religious environment? I'm curious because I've never seen their work in person.
I actually saw an audience like standing in front of my installations and then kind of like contemplates at it for a good minute. I did not disturb her, but when she was there like long enough, I cannot like help myself and then try to explain it to her, and then she was okay, wow, but she did not think that way. She did not like kind of like because I did not have like provide like a object label to explain like where these materials come from. But she told me that's kind of like touched her in some way. And yeah, I mean like two suns, and together with these works, there's always like an atmosphere that's just like I wanted to connect the audience on top of the story, the narrative I'm providing.
May I ask you about your view on like, you know, how this big discussion in art about, you know, providing context to art, right? I think even like last Saturday in Parasite, I think like there was some artists, they were discussing about whether you should give audience this context behind the work. So like one audience at Parasite told the artist that they would appreciate, in a sense, that if they knew what was going on, it would help them understand and touch them even more. But like for you, I can see that you put a lot of effort, you know, behind like the materials you choose, but you don't really provide the context. You let your audience experience and interpret themselves, right? But like, how would you feel like with the effort you put in, like for example, like that girl, she wouldn't have gotten like that, like this, where this material was from and this deeper layer of it. So I mean, it's obviously art can be open to audience to interpret it, but I wonder like what's your view and how do you feel like in terms of this bigger context of whether you should provide context to your audience, and how like at least how do you navigate in this realm?
I when I get into exhibitions, and I often see works that's like feeding lots of information on the audience. Like you will get a lot of information. Sometimes you will get overwhelmed by the information, and which I do not see the same way as they did sometimes. I mean, there is a certain point that there would be some necessary to tell the audience the background story, and for my materials and narratives behind it is like foregrounding the atmosphere and fundamentals elements of the installation. For example, I try to employ distance between two locations and like the time differences, and insert it into the installation. But I would try to keep an open dialogue with the audience, so keep them like go on thinking how to relate themselves to the installation, because my background is a little bit on spatial design. I came from interior design, so I kind of like consider a lot on how audience walk into and exhibitions walk into space and then see installations from their perspective in a like first perspective. Which objects and which thing they will look at first, and how would that object make them feel, and I really concerned about the experience they're getting, instead of like information, like very intense informations, like that's keep them like, okay, when I read through this object labels, I understand this work, so they will miss some things from the details of the work. And so that's why I try to minimize and abstract the motives and topics, and kind of like create using objects to talk
Shawn,
to them individually. Yeah.
I know you have another set of work you actually showed in Germany, which also requires people to see first, and then to discover maybe the hidden stories behind. So can you share more with us about this one?
Yeah, and so you're looking at this one is an installation, a video installation work, and it's called Chorus in 4 minutes and 11 seconds. So this one is a little bit complex in terms of the mechanisms, but when the audience like walk in front of the installation, they will hear very disturbing and like loud sounds produced by each of the channel. And yeah, I would spend some time to kind of explain the mechanism, because I think this one is kind of matters when you know the mechanism behind. And so actually I actually employed a game that I used to watch TV. There was a game called 古歌仔. That's like two sides of the people. One side of the people will wear like a very loud headphones, and there's like a music, songs and lyrics they would have never heard of, and then it's in a total different languages, and then they will try to perform that lyrics and like try to mumble the words out. And the other side of the people, they will try to guess what song they're singing. And then for this project, I asked myself what kind of song I like, and then I picked up like Cantonese song, and it was around 4 minutes and 11 seconds. So the whole project starts by 4 minutes and 11 seconds song picked by me, and then I invite people from also from my friends, and they are from different backgrounds, and ask them to like pick a song you like, but try to look into your phones and find out the song that's the duration is close to 4 minutes and 11 seconds. And then like, so we have a pool of 4 songs. And then I asked them, like, performer 1, like, performed all these 4 songs for me. But beforehand, they didn't know what song they're going to perform beforehand. It's totally like a Google. And they will listen and then perform. And for one song, for one particular song, because it's their song, they will, obviously, they will sing like quite in a much more fluent languages, and then like a much more smooth, and they would be much more confident. But when they're facing like a foreign song or like a foreign languages, they will kind of like, okay, I have to perform, and I have to like try to perform that song. It's like mumbling, like try to keep up with the sounds of the languages. And then like after the performer, they perform all 4 songs, I would keep I would provide like one channel for one performer, and then it's like then these 4 songs will go into random playlists. So in this process, they will when this installation starts, they always start at the same time. So but because of the random playlist, they might be at some point like 2 of the performer performing the same song, and maybe one is performing a song that she knows, and the other will perform like it will be listening like a total foreign language, just had to forced to like perform, and then kind of like projecting like a very funny sound. Okay. But unfortunately, I have no idea how to share the sounds of this video. Okay.
Maybe let's try exit share screen and then reshare screen, maybe.
Access share screen.
Maybe, okay. Okay, now I stop your sharing screen. Maybe you can try one more time. If there's an option to like use audio, you can have that option.
How about I will share the link here.
Oh, I know. Maybe you're using earphones.
AirPods, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's the reason. Yeah.
I share the final videos on the chat room, so in case anyone wants to take a bit of the taste of how it sounds.
Do you want me to play the video? I can play from my side.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah, I think we can pause it here. I can do some explanation for like you're listening basically my singing, and then like my voice was covering like the loudest among the 4, and I mean this work was very meaningful to me because it's about how cultures like collides, and then how cultures find their distinctive, and like it's about cultural boundaries between me and you. And I think that when people are trying to pick up something from themselves in terms of cultural, they can pick up from their own background, but at the same time they can pick up something from a foreign culture. What I observed from this work, and what I found interesting about this work, is when I asked like a friend who is from Zurich at the time, and then he was one of the performers, and then he picked up a song of an Indian song. He picked up an Indian song, and he could really sing that. And I mean, I was like, wow, because I actually invited a friend from India to perform a song too, and then she kind of chose Korean pop song. And I mean, this kind of exchange between people, like that intrigued me. And then I mean, this work doesn't mean to like put the audience like give lots of information. I don't have like an intentional message to the audience, but it's very open to how people interpret and when they look at the world.
So shall we maybe like open our questions to our audience, or any comments if you want to share with Shawn after seeing like 3 projects? So feel free to just unmute yourself and talk directly.
Yeah,
anyone?
Sure.
If people are shy, you can also type in your comments in the chat box. Martha, would you like to share anything or ask any questions?
Yeah, sure. I got some prepared. Okay, so I briefly mentioned this with Shawn before. So I felt like a lot of his work, it really like he referenced a lot of someone else's memory and experience. And he actually like, you can see in his work, like in memory of someone else, that's his other works that we have not shown. In memory of someone else who fell into your embrace, or like the one that I found an essay written in the 60s, and like even the one we just saw, the chorus and 2 sons, or even borrowed time, they're all sort of about referencing someone else's memory, and he would add his own interpretation of someone's experience or memory. So I mean, I wonder like if Shawn himself noticed this pattern where he referenced someone else's experience, and if so, is there like anything in particular that might influence him in doing so?
I mean, like when I was working in memory of someone ever fell into or embrace, it was a collaborative, and it was a site-specific installations. But I obviously, frankly, I have to say, I did not realize like how I practiced this, and how I came along with like with a lot of like research on the like collective background. And I did not know until like when I am sorting out, when I was trying to figure out what I'm doing, and then that's kind of like the thread in between works. And so this work, in memory of someone ever fell into embrace, was also quite an mystic work. And because in CVA, it's other campus, there was like a fountain there was a fountain, but now it's gone. And I really like that fountain because like it was around 2 years ago. My first visit, I saw that fountain. I loved that. And when I was finally studying at AVA, I found it's gone. And it was a pity. And then I really missed that, and I want to express that. And when I researched the background of these fountains, I heard rumors about because of there was a kind of like an accident. A man on a wheelchair kind of like accidentally fell into the fountains and then stuck there, and which caused news. And also, of course, like the estate office like kind of like want to keep that kind of accidents away forever. And then they reconstruct the fountains and built in like a artificial lawns instead of, so they kind of like the whole water body is like lost. And because I miss it really much, and my partner agrees so, and then we did a process, like we were using fret and fabric to mimic the waves that the water has. And so it was kind of like a process of meditating through threading the fabric. And also we during research we also like found kind of like fabrics. This kind of fabrics kind of like they are very transparent, and their texture was almost like water. And yeah, and during the time there was, because it was like a seasonal change and like leaves and flowers like falling off, and then it eventually like collects the flowers and leaves, and these are like the leaves fallen, and then at the end like we collect all the leaves and flowers, and it was almost like a ritual. And means like it's, the accident was like a history, even though I know it could be fake, but I think that I kind of like obsessed with the fountain itself. And yeah, I try to employ that. And maybe because I also like get touched by other story. Yeah, so I kind of missed the question again. Did I answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah, you sort of did, because I asked like, why is it that you borrow a lot of other people's experience to your work?
Yeah, we also got a similar question from Edward. Edward is asking if there's any other artists inspiring Shawn, or we can maybe like extend this question to also any other people inspired Shawn.
Who inspired me to do that way? I mean, like during studies, I really admire artists like Agnes Martin. I mean, I was very fond of her paintings, for her minimalist painting, because I remember like one of her sentences. She says like, beauty is the meaning of the sentence was quite like the beauty is when you see beauty is like it's not like how beautiful you depict is determined by the others. When you're sad, when you see a very beautiful rose, you will see it in a sad way. It's like and then when you're happier, and then when you see a rose, you will perceive that rose as like happiness. I mean that's could be that could be the foundation. that could be something I am trying to I'm doing now in my installation. Re-admire.
Okay, I'll read another comment by Lila. It's like, thank you so much for sharing about your work, Shawn. I realize a lot of your works are highly calculated and detailed into some sort of algorithm of installation. I wonder if its distinct randomness is incorporated into your work by any chance.
I think this you can say it's randomness, but mostly like the objects which visually like kind of like attracts me, and I discover these from everyday life, and like maybe it's like a combination of a narrative by the others, and also like a visual like objects with visually is attracted to me, and I mean, what can I say? It's I try to, because when I was practicing in works, I always think like these things must happen by reason. So I try to like push down everything, and everything you see in the installations, they happen because of a reason. And yeah, for example, like the installation you saw earlier, the two suns, the time 8 minutes and 31 seconds was a detail. It was 8 minutes and 8 minutes and 31 seconds was the time when the light particles transmitted from the sun to the earth. So it kind of makes sense to me, like when we perceive the sunset from this side and we can experience the sunset from that side. It's like a, it's like in that, I can say that because it's like when you're in that room, you will experience how light transforms, and how light like moving from one end to the other.
Thank you, Shawn. And since it's already 8:06, maybe I'll wait for if I have like a final question for our audience. And also at the same time, want to ask you about, do you have any upcoming projects or shows or any plans you want to share with us?
Now I am very into raft, the floating platforms on the sea, and it's because like during the pandemic, during these periods, like the beach is kind of like, I mean, the government's government monitored beach, they are kind of like shut down, and not all the beaches in Hong Kong like they have raft, and I was kind of intrigued by that visually, and at the same time I'm working with like a project about how to letting go of feelings during the time, and hopefully this exhibition is going to happen in January, and I'm exploring the materials that's related to raft, and also like how do I employ the image of it, how do I employ the background of it. Like I came across a news about rafts is about last year for raft because of the typhoon. You know, like in 2018 there was a very strong typhoon that kind of like blows off everything, and like 4 rafts from Shak-O was washed. Three of them were washed away, and one because of the typhoon, and it went to the shore and then kind of broken. And then I was intrigued by that raft, that news, and yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
So Shawn, would you like to maybe share your website with us, or any social media accounts so we can follow you and stay tuned on your projects?
Yeah, and my website, let me see, my website is, so my website is shawnphtang.info, and it's just one image. But you can, if you want to see the portfolio, the selected works, you can click here, the small button here, and that's my website.
Okay, shawnphtang.info. Okay, I tapped that in the chat box. Okay, so if we do not have any other questions, we'll call it a night.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Shawn.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Shawn, and thank you, Martha, for moderation. Okay.
Thank you.
You will see the recording of today's studio visit on Parasite's YouTube tomorrow. So also feel free to ask us if you have any questions or any other inquiries. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for sharing.
Bye. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.